edition of the NFL Goal Line. The divisional round of the playoffs is in the books. We will preview the conference championships here tonight. On top of that, what's the deal with practice kicks? Should they be allowed, and are they that big a deal? All this and more on NFL Goal Line.
Hello, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome inside the NFL Goal Line Studios. I'm your host, Nick Rice, wherever you may be and however you may be listening. Thanks for making us part of your day. We are simulcast here live on Spreaker.com's National Sports. Thank you guys for joining us. I'm here alongside Phil Nunziata for what should be an action-packed Tuesday night of NFL Goal Line. Let's get started with the top headline of the afternoon. The new 15th head coach for the San Diego Chargers. He takes over a team over the past 6 years that has really struggled. Turned from a dominant 13-3 football team. They went 14-2 in 2006 as well under head coach Marty Schottenheimer. They struggle under 6 seasons as head coach Norv Turner takes this team from a 14-2 team filled with 12 Pro Bowlers, on and on and on. One trip away from perhaps what should have been somewhat of a dominant run for San Diego. And then they go from that situation down to the dumps, a 7-9 record, and Norv Turner is out along with A.J. Smith. They filled both parties in the last few weeks, including most recently the new Mike McCoy, former Broncos offensive coordinator for the past 4 seasons. Phil, I don't know if you know much about this new signing, just developing story out today. They're trying to work on a contract for Mike McCoy. He will be in San Diego. How do you feel about a new deal being done for this new Chargers head coach, and do you see this as a positive thing for this city by the bay moving forward?
Well, this is definitely more your cup of tea, talking Chargers football here, but the Eagles were also interested in Mike McCoy, so I did have a little time to do some research on him, and I definitely think it's a great pickup. In his press conference the other day, not very long, but I think the highlighted sentence in it is he's ready to begin the process of fixing the Chargers. He's not taking over, a brand new Porsche. He's got, what my family call a little Scott Chabon car going. It's definitely got a lot things he needs to fix, and he's ready to do that. You definitely need a hard-working coach
We interrupt
to take
NFLA.
out of the dumps, and I think Mike McCoy is ready to do that, and I'm excited to see the Chargers improve.
I'm absolutely excited as well. Obviously, Mike McCoy, he was the Broncos offensive coordinator from 2009 to 2012 before moving up to the head coach ranks. And Mike McCoy, I see him as being a tremendous improvement for this Chargers team. They struggled offensively, ranking in the bottom 12 in that category. The passing game was erratic and the running game extremely inconsistent. And Mike McCoy was a guy that used to be in Carolina. He helped fix Jake Delhomme to help him look like an above-average quarterback. Obviously, he was far from that afterwards. And then Tim Tebow, last year, all the hype with him, Mike McCoy made him a playoff quarterback that won a playoff game, and then also changed the whole offensive scheme in 1 year to fit Peyton Manning. And the offense wasn't really to blame. I mean, they put up over 400 yards last week in the divisional round. We'll get to this action just in a little bit. And then also he allowed that team to put up 35 points. The defense was more of the concern there. But overall, I believe that Mike McCoy will be a huge improvement for San Diego that really has self-destructed, especially at the quarterback position. Of course, is my cup of tea more, but I believe that Mike McCoy is the man of the future. Now, there's some other coaching vacancies still left on the market, most notably your Philadelphia Eagles, Phil, and there's a lot of very high-qualified coaches that are still on the market. Lovie Smith and Bruce Arians, two of the top names that come to mention. Who are the Philadelphia Eagles looking at, and who do you believe will be the new man over there in Philadelphia?
Well, it's interesting you bring that up because a lot of people thought that the Eagles would be one of those teams to jump quickly on someone for the new head coaching job. And the fact of the matter is a lot of the guys that they had candidates for were playoff team coordinators. And, Jay Gruden, offensive coordinator of the Bengals, Mike McCoy, obviously, like I said earlier, was one of the leading candidates. Another leading candidate is Gus Bradley, the defensive coordinator for the Seahawks. And now that they've been knocked out, he's actually one of only 2 guys they have asked back for a second interview that might speak volumes of their plans for him. A few other guys shown in there. Lovie Smith did have an interview. I haven't really gotten much word on how that one panned out, but I think if there's a front runner at the moment at this leg of the race, I gotta say it's Gus Bradley.
Obviously, Philadelphia has a huge hole to fill. 14 years for Andy Reid is just the start of a very impressive career. Now he's a member of the Kansas City Chiefs, hoping to rebuild that 2-14 organization. And we also last week got with the we went in depth with the Jacksonville coaching situation. Other teams still looking to find their new head man. Chicago, another team, a high-powered team, went 10-6 last year, trying to find their head coach. But now, a very interesting fill-in that the Denver Broncos have to have. They need a new offensive coordinator. There's some notable guys that will. Notable guys on the market that can fill that offensive coordinator job. It'll be interesting who they get to that offensive coordinator spot. Quick note here, Norv Turner, I would know this because being a Chargers fan, I'm very in-depth on him. Norv Turner found an offensive coordinator spot. I'm not 100% sure what the team is. I believe it's either Buffalo or Jacksonville, but it's interesting how some of these coaches seem to fall down at offensive and defensive coordinator spots. I mean, all these guys are real impressive. They know what they're doing. Even if they weren't successful at the coaching ranks, they can still be very impressive at coordinator spots and help their teams win. Romeo Crennel is another guy. He's a very defensive-minded guy that can really help a team, maybe not as a head coaching position. Some guys just are not fit for head coaching spots. Others are more of coordinator spots. I mean, I'm also looking at right here. I mean, for the head coach, sometimes all of the blame is really put on you, and sometimes it's not all the coaching spots. It takes a whole team, a whole staff, and for John Fox, with the game tied at 35 between the Broncos and the Ravens, with 30 seconds of the play, I'm scratching my head to why Peyton Manning doesn't go to the air in that situation. But, Phil, can you see why the Broncos elected to take a knee and go to overtime in that situation in a very high-power game? Even though the momentum wasn't on their side, it still is hard to take a knee and just head to overtime in that situation.
I've tried to find a positive look on it, and honestly, I can't find one. I mean, when they interviewed the Broncos afterwards, they put it in the situation of a punch-drunk fighter trying to get out of the round. That may be true for your defense, who just gave up a 70-plus yard bomb over the heads of all your secondary players, for a touchdown. I can understand your defense feeling that way, but your offense is playing fine and has played pretty well that entire game. That's, in my opinion, that's why you have Peyton Manning. That's what makes Peyton Manning different than your average quarterback, is with 30 seconds left and 2 timeouts, I think is the biggest thing. If it's just 30 seconds, I can maybe understand it, but you give Peyton Manning 2 timeouts, that is an eternity for him to make something happen there. They have a decent kicker there in Denver. I don't understand why you don't give him a chance, and obviously in hindsight, it's easy to say, oh, they should have went for it there. But honestly, I think that's why you have Peyton Manning, and it was definitely a detriment to not give him that opportunity.
And I'm looking at the final 2 minutes for a Denver team that went 13-3, extremely impressive, 11-game winning streak heading into this matchup against the Ravens. They were 9-point favorites in this game, and without 2 Trendon Holiday return touchdowns, this game was not even close. So in a game where you really shouldn't have even been in it, with 30 seconds to go, I am taking my wingtip shoes off and I'm going for it. Especially, I'm scratching my head to another couple situations the Denver Broncos had with such an electric season that really was by a lot of fans marked as a team that will make the Super Bowl for representing the AFC. In the final 2 minutes, with the Broncos up by a touchdown, they run it on 3 straight plays after the 2-minute warning, especially a 3rd down and 7. I'm scratching my head to why the Broncos elect to run the ball on 3 straight downs and punt it away. And then I'm scratching my head to why the Broncos play, despite a deep coverage, deep formation with deep coverage, why they let Jacoby Jones run free down the sideline for a touchdown. I know, obviously, the play was intended to be covering deeper than that, but I'm scratching my head why they don't tell their players, play deeper than that. I mean, 50 yards is not enough, believe it or not. I mean, Joe Flacco, outside of maybe Matthew Stafford, has the most powerful arm in the league. And then third and final situation, 30 seconds ago, Manning takes a knee and sends it to overtime. And in my mind, when I see dejected faces after that knee, I see Manning head down, I see the offensive line with just the most dejected face, with the season on the line here in the divisional round of the playoffs, they lost that game. They lost that game. It was tied going to overtime, and the Broncos had a couple more possessions, but the game was over at that point. I believe you would agree, Phil.
Yeah, I was actually, you just took the words right out of my mouth. The way I look at it, had they put the ball in the air, even if they didn't score, barring a turnover, of course, just the fact that they were given the opportunity, I think they win that game in overtime. I think them taking the knee said to those players, we don't have faith in this offense for whatever reason at this situation. Anyway, we didn't have faith in this offense. And as you said, you could see it in the players. Definitely a little demoralizing, and definitely put, the Ravens had, I'd say, 90% of the momentum anyway. The little bit that the Broncos had went right out the window when they took that knee, and I definitely think, ipso facto led to their loss this past weekend.
And I'm looking at a team also that they signed Peyton Manning to be their savior now, to help this team filled with talented guys. I'm very impressed how they've drafted the past few years. They've gotten low-round picks that have really performed, that have really come up out of their own, and they've also nurtured old veterans. I mean, I'm curious to why in this game Champ Bailey was thrown around like a rag doll against receivers that really aren't even at the top on the Baltimore depth chart. Guys like Torrey.
They targeted him all game. I was very surprised for that one.
He was burned for 3 or 4 scores all day. I mean, he was just thrown around the entire afternoon. And also you see the broadcasters, Jim Nantz, Phil Simms. I mean, from the start, hey, I think Bailey needs some extra help on the outside, and he was continued to get just thrown around the entire game. And the other,
it's not something you ever think you're going to hear about Champ Bailey is him needing help.
Yeah, and the other thing is with Peyton Manning too. You see in the second half, Manning throwing some really pedestrian dying ducks, just pathetic passes, balls woefully underthrown. I mean, there was a third down play. They convert it to Brandon Stokely, but there's a wide open Stokely on the sideline. He underthrows him by 5 or 6 yards. I mean, this was a game that Peyton Manning really would love nightmare in a divisional round game that they really had to have. And this just signifies Peyton Manning's career. He's 9-11 all-time in the postseason over his career. I'm fascinated to why such a great quarterback struggles so much in the postseason. And Phil, I hate to say it, but if this trend continues next season, this might be Peyton Manning's legacy. He won 1 Super Bowl, but was oh so close to winning 2, 3, 4, or maybe so many others.
Yeah, I forget exactly where I heard this, but I couldn't agree more. When it comes to quarterbacks anyway, their salary is made in the regular season, and their legacy is made in the postseason. And it could very well be Peyton Manning will go down as the greatest regular season quarterback ever, which that in itself is a backhanded compliment due to the fact that his struggles in the postseason. He was able to win a Super Bowl, of course, but a lot of the haters will let you know that he beat Rex Grossman and the Bears in that Super Bowl. Not exactly the most powerhouse of teams in that Super Bowl, but they have really no control over that. Point being, yes, Peyton Manning does have, for one reason or another, a lot of struggles, which could definitely impact his legacy as someone who can't perform for whatever reason in the playoffs after being so talented in the regular season.
I mean, just being a Manning fan, I hope for the best next season for this guy. I mean, he's gone through so much. Just the fact that he came back off of 4 neck surgeries from the previous season. I mean, many people bashed him for being out for so long, but there was reason for Peyton Manning to be out that long. I mean, he is one of those motivational guys that just never gives up. I mean, I expect him to be back the next few years, giving it his all. I mean, in that divisional game, I know he just gave it everything he had. Just not the performance you would have hoped to come out of this 2012 season with yet another playoff departure. Do not leave us here on the NFL Goal Line. We'll be right back with some more football debates, including why Pete Carroll, with some very head-scratching decisions, calling a timeout with Matt Bryant missing a 49-yard field goal, and how the Seahawks were also 0-2 in the red zone throughout the first half. NFL Goal Line rolls on. We'll see Robert Dieters to talk Seahawk football on the other side of the break. 30-second commercial. We'll be right back. The Seattle Seahawks converted 2 red zone drives into 0 points in the first half, and they also called a timeout with 3 seconds to go when Matt Bryant attempted a game-winning field goal. Who is to blame for a Seattle run that falls short of their expectations? The NFL Goal Line resumes. Thank you guys for listening here on the NFL Goal Line. Nick and Phil are all live here on Spreaker.com's national sports presentation of NFL Goal Line. Thank you guys for joining us here, and we will obviously be taking a look around the entire National Football League, but perhaps the most intriguing game coming from the NFC side, not even perhaps, it was a very high-powered contest between Atlanta and Seattle, and 2 teams that are very similar talent-wise. Now, we see in the first half the Seahawks trailing early. It was 20-0 heading into the third quarter. And for such a talented team to be shut out in the first half, I'm scratching my head. We have Robert Dieters, obviously the commissioner of the national sports radio station. We thank you for joining us, Robert. And Robert, real quick, just a little nugget here. In that situation with the Falcons trailing by a point in the waning seconds of the game, are you a fan of Pete Carroll calling a timeout to quote-unquote ice the kicker?
You know what I said in the controversy? No. What's Pete Carroll doing? They should have won the game. They should have won it. Pete Carroll made a horrible decision by icing the kicker, and he, after he missed it, he was like, oh, did I call that? I'm like, are you serious, Pete Carroll? You're not going to get away with that. You made the timeout. Horrible decision. And also another call I was not happy with. I believe they were down 20-0. They tried to go for it on 4th and 1 and failed to do that. So Pete Carroll's decision to that game against Atlanta, I didn't like, in my opinion. And, that's just mine. So if people want to argue, that's fine.
Well, obviously, I'm not a big fan of argument here on this show, but obviously it was a somewhat controversial entire game for Pete Carroll. You mentioned near the end of the first half trying to pass the football, and they are unable to do so, ending the first half with a 20-0 deficit that was just too close for this team to overcome. Now, we look at the other side. Atlanta, very impressive in the first half. They had a game plan, and they took it up the mouth of this Seattle defense, just pounding it inside with some quick passes and power football. It was 20-0 after one half, and Atlanta also engineered another drive to take a 27-7 lead at one point in the fourth quarter. But that fourth quarter where Seattle came back, was that more of a Seahawk kind of a rally and attack in that final quarter, or was this more Atlanta falling apart? And they faced a San Francisco team. Sure, it's in the Georgia Dome, but San Francisco, perhaps the most talented team in football, will be bringing the heat early and often. And after a thrashing against the Green Bay Packers, is this concern for Atlanta next week as we look forward to the conference championship game?
I think that's we haven't played them. I mean, this is a team where it's going to be tough, and, I don't know how we're going to do. And these type of situation, I kind of can't wait to see how this game goes down. Number 1, number 2 go at it, and Colin Kaepernick got the most rush yards in that game against the Packers, and I was really impressed with Colin Kaepernick. Came back after a pick 6, and especially with Frank Gore, the defense has done well, and they got the interception off of Aaron Rodgers, and I was really happy about that, really impressed by this defense, and, they just got to play hard. The Falcons is the number 1 offense. We're not the number 1 defense, but I can tell you what, this defense works hard at what it does. you can stop their running game no matter what.
In that game next week in the Georgia Dome, it's Atlanta and San Francisco, a winner to the Super Bowl. Who are you thinking will be the key player of the game in that matchup? You have a battle of two quarterbacks, both with different levels of experience, but both have had similar success this season. Kaepernick, very impressive last week in that victory over Green Bay. Matt Ryan, not so much. I see Matt Ryan more pressure packed in that situation than Russell Wilson that really had ice-cold veins in that fourth quarter. Who do you see being the player to watch next week in the conference championship game?
Well, you saw Colin Kaepernick really show himself good in passing. I think that's going to be the guy who you're looking for in this one. But also, a silent pick in this one, Randy Moss, a guy that really came up on the big third down conversions in the Packers game. I know not a lot of people notice him, and I think we've had this conversation before. My silent wide receiver he's had ever since the first game of the season. If you look at it, Randy Moss, I think, would be a big key for this offense. This guy still can catch. He's still a veteran. And, you just got to get the third down conversions. Michael Crabtree will do well. Wide receivers are a big key as well. So when you look at the offense, if they don't get the running game going, their passing game's going to have to do well.
Yeah, I agree. I think Randy Moss could definitely be a big key in this game. Recently they've been using him more of a intermediate passing game. I think, breaking his routes off a little bit quicker than you would think throws a lot of defenses off guard. But if they finally let him loose to catch a deep ball or two, could definitely be the big difference. Last week during the Packers game, I remember saying that special teams was going to be the big key for that. I ended up being correct halfway because I thought it was going to be Michael James in the return game. Turned out being the Packers fumbling a kickoff. Still a big special teams play, which definitely started shifting the momentum. Games like this, it only takes one unsung hero to really swing it. And I can definitely see Randy Moss, one last hurrah, maybe getting that ring before his career is over.
Yeah, and absolutely. I mean, there's so many storylines in this game. This Atlanta team winning their very first playoff matchup, and then San Francisco getting set for their sixth playoff or Super Bowl experience, against whoever wins in that AFC side. But we also take a look at another game, San Francisco and Green Bay, a game that really was out of hand from the very beginning. Green Bay battled into the halftime, trailing only by a field goal. But what did you see in that game that really helps you have some confidence in your team, Robert, heading into next week against Atlanta? A game where they put up 45 points, but defensively it was up and down until that fourth quarter where they really buckled down on defense.
Well, I know one player I'm very happy with is David Akers. He made the field goal to give them the lead in the half, and I remember NFL Night, that was the conversation, and, happy with David Akers. I think gave him some competition, finally realized, I got to step it up. He's got to be his old self. He's got to be his 2011 self. And, when the Niners come in, they just kind of, as Bill said, the special teams has done pretty well, and I agree with him. We caused the fumble, and we recovered it. I was impressed with that, especially with this special team they have done well all season, and that's also going to be a big key for us. If we could fumble the ball on a punt return, that would probably be a big key for us.
Thank you, Robert. He's the commissioner of the national sports here on Spreaker.com. Thank you, Robert, so much for joining us. Obviously, a great pleasure to have you here on NFL Goal Line, and you could chime in on this very show. Call-in number for tonight's broadcast is 951-515-4552. You can call me or Phil on the NFL Goal Line on Spreaker.com, and we would obviously appreciate any calls, texts, tweets, whatever it takes for you to get your voice heard. We're also on Twitter and Facebook as well. And we speak about that San Francisco and Green Bay game. Going over to the hot topic developing here throughout the week, Green Bay Packers are eliminated, and the defense putting up 45 points, allowing that much to a San Francisco team that up and down had their struggles with Colin Kaepernick at quarterback. Most notably, scoring only 10 points in a loss against St. Louis. That was really the low point of this impressive season so far for the Niners. And Dom Capers has taken the heat, the defensive coordinator for the Green Bay Packers. Do you see this Packer defensive debacle filled with playmakers? I mean, this team, Clay Matthews, B.J. Raji, Tramon Williams, Charles Woodson, this team was not only healthy, but this team was actually somewhat talented heading into this game. And to give up 45 points with the season on the line, is the blame on Dom Capers, or is it just on the defensive players not making the plays in this game?
Well, I think honestly the Packers' defense has kind of always been overrated. Even the year that they win the Super Bowl, people forget this was the 32nd ranked defense in the league. The thing that made them so great is almost an oxymoron of sorts. They're last in the league in defense, however, they led the league in turnovers. So when you have to play the turnover game for your defense to be successful, that's a huge roll of the dice. When they're not getting the turnovers, and they started out well getting that pick six we talked about earlier, Colin Kaepernick, but when you have to roll the dice, when you need turnovers to be successful on defense, it's not always going to happen. And when it doesn't, you see things like we saw this past weekend.
And I also see this as a situation late in the third quarter with the Niners up by a field goal. They run a quarterback option. They've done that all game long. And they run a fake halfback lead to the left side. And Colin Kaepernick, in a very smart play, fakes the handoff and scrambles to the right side, and there's nothing but green grass for a 59-yard rushing touchdown. And on that play, the Packers actually were set up in the correct scheme. Eric Walden was supposed to wall off the outside lane for Colin Kaepernick, but he was just blatantly fooled by the play-action fake, and Colin Kaepernick scrambles to the other side. Also, you see that Packer defense just have no intentions on tackling the ball carrier once he reaches the open field. And Colin Kaepernick has a gimme walk-in touchdown. That was just the key for today. The Niners, I mean, I'm impressed by Colin Kaepernick. He has, above the shoulders, he's an A+. He's a very intelligent quarterback, has a powerful arm and legs, unlike very few in the National Football League. I believe that he was the right decision over Colin Kaepernick, or over Alex Smith, excuse me. But, I mean, just in this game, I see this more as a Packer defense that really is under-talented and undermatched the entire football game. That pick six was the rare and far in between highlight with a defense that really self-destructed, especially late in that fourth quarter with the season on the line, giving 21 points to the Niners in that final 15 minutes.
Yeah, you want to talk about that read option game. It just worked to perfection there. And it's something, you see in the NFL, but you don't see it a lot. It's not something, especially now you're going to start defending against it. But it's not something that teams would spend a lot of time on during the week. Obviously, that's going to change now. But it was just a thing of beauty. It was almost poetry in motion. Bruce Miller, the fullback, makes one block, and that's all Kaepernick needs. He makes the block on the DN coming around the edge. As he said, they don't pick it up on the right side the rest of the way, and he's gone. He scored on it twice, and he gashed them a few other times. Even the times that he did hand the ball off to the running back, it was guaranteed 7 yards before they knew what happened. The most interesting thing about, if you want to talk about how much of the run game was affected with Colin Kaepernick, he had his record-breaking 181 yards in the game. 167 of it was without contact. So this man almost ran the field twice without a single player making contact on him. That's how you know you had this defense beat.
And this was a situation with the San Francisco 49ers. It was just outside of that pick six for the remaining 59 minutes, 45 seconds. The Niners just had all the answers and then some over the Packers on their defensive side. I mean, it was a flat-out game where they just had their number every single time it was called. Every single time. I mean, offensively, scoring 6 touchdowns and a field goal, I mean, what more can you ask on that side of the ball? And defensively, the Packers were held very much in check until that late rally. The Packers had desperation in a game that was marked as a loss since the opening kickoff. Similar situation between the Texans and the Patriots. They have a long kickoff return. Oh, hey, they're getting the field position battle right off the start. No, this game was written as a loss for Houston from the start. At one point, it's 31-13. New England giving some points to the Texans, just trying to ice the game. It was over from the start. It was over. Also, speaking of this game, Rob Gronkowski injured for the remainder of the postseason with yet another forearm injury. He injured the same forearm that sidelined him earlier on in the year. And now other players have to step up for this team. How impressed were you with Shane Vereen, with Aaron Hernandez, and other guys, just fill-ins trying to, it's just kind of a pick your poison, guys coming right off the bench, and outside of Ryan Mallett, every player seemingly on this Patriot team is ready to suit up and play. I've been very impressed. What is your take on a team that is very loaded from top to bottom, 53 men that can suit up and play on a snap against one of the best teams in the AFC, the Houston Texans?
Well, the Patriots' motto, pretty much since Bill Belichick got there, has always been simple. It's always been next man up. They've always been prepared regardless of what goes down. Don't get me wrong, the loss of Gronkowski is a huge injury for the Patriots, but this team has already played a few games this year without him. They're somewhat prepared on how to play successful football without him. It's still a huge loss. I was very impressed with the Patriot players that stepped up here. I don't think anyone expected the Texans to do much in this game. The fact that it was even close at halftime was very surprising. But overall, the Patriots are looking dangerous. But then again, if there was a team that's going to stop them, I'd have picked Baltimore and do it.
And obviously, the Houston Texans, they have problems on offense when they can't get the running game going. That play-action game is pretty much their entire offense. And with a team like the New England Patriots, they prepare so well throughout the week. And they also have so many schematic advantages. It's every week. It's a chess match. And New England is so electric in the playoffs. They have over an 80% lifetime in the postseason, which is remarkable. I mean, these are the best teams of the entire NFL that are playing. They're playing against every single week in the postseason, and they are just remarkable because of the next man up mentality, because of their schematic advantages, and the fact that they draft so well. I mean, Shane Vereen was supposed to be the third running back on the depth chart due to injuries, due to the fact that Shane Vereen has just outplayed some of his contenders. He's made it into this lineup for today's game and caught 3 touchdowns, 1 on the ground and 2 through the air. He was extremely impressive, and also, I mean, just that next man up mentality. I'm so impressed with New England. And with a performance like this, do you believe that Baltimore even has a chance after barely sneaking out of Mile High? Now they have to travel over to New England to take on the Patriots. Do you think they even have a chance, or is it all Patriots in this game?
Oh, I think they definitely have a chance. I mean, if you look recently, it was only a few seasons ago that the Ravens really, put a beating on the Patriots, 33-14, knocking them out of the playoffs. And even this year, they did what they needed to do, and they defeated the Patriots earlier on in the year. Obviously, both teams are pretty different since those games went down. But I think Baltimore definitely has a chance. Like I said a few minutes ago, if anyone's going to derail New England, I'd pick Baltimore.
And do you find it interesting, Phil, that every single year there is a player, most valuable player of the year talk, and there is never a mention of Tom Brady? In the playoffs, he is magic. In the regular season, he is always there to play. It's been 12 years of the most consistent football I've ever seen. I mean, does that scratch your head a little bit why Tom Brady, he has 3 Super Bowl rings, has potentially 5 if it weren't for the New York Giants, and then Peyton Manning, only 1 Super Bowl ring, very inconsistent playoff play, and he has 4 most valuable player honors, and he's in the running for a number 5 in that category. To me, that just seems interesting.
Yeah, I honestly, and this is no knock on Tom, but this is really the only way I can describe it. You talk about consistency. I think he's been so consistent that it's almost boring. He doesn't have slumps. He doesn't, and you can't fault him for that. But really, when you just see the same exact thing, whether it be good or bad, it gets boring. And I think that explains why a lot of the times the Patriots still just fly under the radar, regardless of how good they're playing.
And obviously, the New England Patriots, outside of the Ravens are going to be they're going to be underdogs in this game again. And if the Patriots don't play their game, that is the only way I see Tom Brady even having to make some sort of a comeback to win this game. I believe that New England is on their way to the Super Bowl. We'll get to predictions soon here on the NFL goal line, but I mean, I'm just impressed by what New England is doing. I mean, Tom Brady, reading off the stats, 25 of 40, 344 yards, 3 touchdowns, and no interceptions. We also saw earlier on in the year, I mean, with some teams, you can see from the very get-go, and New England we've seen from years ago being that kind of a team, but with the running game finally there, you can finally see, here we go. Here's New England again, one step away from the Super Bowl. I mean, it was almost called for. You know, by week 5 or week 6, you see this team with Ridley and with Woodhead bang for over 100 yards a game on the ground. Something we haven't seen. It's just kind of like, all right, here we go. Here's a New England team that can finally have that second dimension, that ground game that can compete with anyone. And they are a real hot team, and now they're taking on a team in Baltimore that was oh so close to not even being in this scenario, and Denver, 35 points put on the board. The defense is a cause for concern, and for this New England team with so many weapons on offense, Gronkowski will be very missed. I mean, he is a huge piece of that offense. I mean, what does Baltimore have to do here? I mean, what as a offensive coordinator, what's the game plan against this New England team that is so powerful and so deadly, especially in the playoffs?
Well, I think, like you said, one of the bigger things is they have played the Patriots this year. They know a little bit more what to expect with them. I could see this game. My gut feeling is I want to pick Baltimore. Maybe it's just, I'm drinking the Ray Lewis Kool-Aid. Maybe that's just it. But I just... Again, if anyone's going to figure them out, it's got to be them. The way this team just steps up when they need to. It's not always pretty, but they find ways to do it. And Joe Flacco, there's 4 quarterbacks left here, and aside from Tom Brady, Kaepernick had a great game just now, but it's almost hard not to say, at least at the moment, that Joe Flacco is the second best quarterback playing in these playoffs right now, due to the fact that he just comes up big, as you said, probably one of the best, if not the strongest arm in the league, able to throw it downfield. And I don't know that the Patriots have dealt with that lately. The Texans were supposedly one of those teams, and they never had a problem with it. But I don't think the Patriots have really faced a vertical passing game like that that's so dynamic since the 49ers early in the year, in a game where the Niners came up with the W.
And we will get more into this conference championship debate. We will be right back after a quick 30-second quick 30-second commercial break, We'll be right back here on the NFL goal line, and why I believe that Baltimore has their advantage at the quarterback position over Tom Brady in that game between Baltimore and New England. We'll be right back to the NFL goal line after a quick 30-second break. Stay tuned. Welcome back to the NFL Goal Line here. We're live with Nick Rice and Phil Nunziata on the National Sports Edition on Spreaker.com of the NFL Goal Line. And last year, with the Baltimore Ravens one step away from that conference championship victory, they were a Lee Evans drop and a Billy Cundiff missed field goal away from a Super Bowl appearance. And that was the difference in that game with a contest that was oh so close. Joe Flacco was actually extremely impressive. It was quite obvious that he just outplayed Tom Brady and that New England Patriot offense. I mean, outside of some key mistakes, do you believe that the Ravens are a better team? And are the Patriots not ready like they did earlier in the year? The Ravens beat the Patriots earlier on in the season. Do you believe that this could be a different outcome? I know we were talking about this right before the break here, but is Ray Lewis just the difference? I mean, this is a team that is 5-5 this season without Ray Lewis and 7-1 with their star linebacker in the lineup. Is this kind of one of those scenarios where there just might be a little extra force outside of football playing in this game?
Yeah, it wouldn't surprise me. You bring up last year's game in the AFC title game. It wouldn't surprise me if Lee Evans still can't show his face in Baltimore due to that happening. But I think we brought this up earlier. He being Joe Flacco, outplayed Tom Brady in that game in the biggest stage that he had got to at that point. He didn't flinch. He didn't, and that team's only gotten better since last year. And this is a team that I think the common conception is the Ravens won that game. They outplayed them in every situation except they didn't have more points. So honestly, I think the Ravens are almost custom fit to beat the Patriots, and they have been for a few years, and the records of it shows it.
And I caution fans that go too much into how their team performed the previous weekend. Now, as we preview both these conference championship games, you can't look too much into the Baltimore Ravens almost losing to a team in the Mile High City, the Denver Broncos, that really the Ravens had their hands full in that matchup. And you can't look at a team like the New England Patriots that just blew the door off the Houston Texans, and outside of kick returns, this game wasn't even remotely close. I mean, this was a team that defeated that Texan team 41-14 earlier on in the year, and Houston was closer to having their number. Now, close only counts in horseshoes. Now we move on to the NFC, NFC as well. Atlanta squeezes through with a victory to get it to the conference championship game. And San Francisco, again, close only counts in horseshoes. The Green Bay Packers had zero answers for that San Francisco team, and it showed throughout the entire game. We look at this San Francisco and Atlanta matchup. Again, it's Kaepernick against Matt Ryan, seemingly. And most importantly, it's a defense ranking top 10 in the league, I'm speaking San Francisco, against Atlanta that offensively is extremely explosive. Robert Dieters mentioned just a bit earlier, number 1 in the National Football League at playing total offense. Who do you see will be the key player of the game in this matchup? It's hard to predict. There's so many key players that rise up to the occasion, especially at this portion of the season. Who do you see being the player to watch in this matchup?
Well, I have two, and as much as you talk about the quarterbacks, I don't think it'll be them. For the situation being, with the Falcons at least, is they need to get the run game going. Matt Ryan could be deadly when he has a running game to fall back on, when the play-action pass can be put into place. You look at any game that the Falcons have lost, since Matt Ryan has been there, it's always the games where the run game isn't working. They've found ways around it, but when you get this deep in the playoffs, you need everything firing on all cylinders. The run game for Kaepernick, he's going to need to make plays with his feet after they're expecting it now. Everyone saw the game last week, almost 200 yards rushing, for a quarterback that's unheard of. They were expecting the plays with the feet. You better believe that they're game planning around that. Interestingly enough, it just comes down to the running game on both sides because Matt Ryan needs it to play better, and it's just another dimension of Kaepernick's game. So I think I can almost guarantee you, whoever has the most rushing yards is probably going to win this game.
It's not surprising that Atlanta in the first half, they're up 20-0. They run the football with authority. In the second half, Seattle figures out their offense. They go back-to-back 3-and-outs. They have they have one touchdown in the entire second half, that in the third quarter. No points outside of a Matt Bryant field goal at the waning seconds of the final quarter. As for San Francisco, it was a very even game. They were scoring throughout the entire afternoon, and on defense, they are extremely powerful. From a wall-to-wall, I believe the most talented team defensively in the National Football League. A very intriguing matchup. We'll go to our predictions now. Phil Nunziata, who are you taking between San Francisco and Atlanta, and a quick 20-second why?
I'm actually just going to go ahead and knock them both out. My prediction, and I really hope this goes true here, is I'm hoping that it's Harbaugh versus Harbaugh. I want to see that Super Bowl. I think, we pretty much talked about it a little bit. I'll just piece it all together now. I think the Ravens are custom fit to beat the Patriots, and I think the Niners have a better chance of stopping the rushing attack of the Falcons and vice versa. I just see those two teams pulling it out, and we get to see brother versus brother in the Super Bowl. That's my prediction and what I hope happens.
Obviously, as a football fan, you hope Harbaugh Bowl, and also as a CBS kind of employee there with the NFL on CBS, you hope for a Harbaugh versus Harbaugh Super Bowl. Talk about viewership in the biggest game of the year. I believe that the New England Patriots at home with this situation yet again, they are so hungry and they have that running game even better than last year. I believe that this is a better rushing game than last year, and that offense, despite Gronkowski, I believe gets it done. But just for the Baltimore Ravens, you hope that Ray Lewis somehow rallies the troops. I just got to take the home team in the AFC and the road team in the NFC because the Niners are frankly just too good. I predicted Patriot and Niners Super Bowl. We got the NFC predicted sound, but I think the Patriots are on their way to another Super Bowl victory. I mean, it's hard to predict. There's so many outcomes in this game, in this series, but none of us taking Atlanta in this game. I mean, just defensively, I don't believe they're good enough of a team. Earlier on, Phil, you were high on those Falcons. I know the record really showed how good they truly were. They're clutch with the game on the line, and they proved it again. And if it comes down to that final matchup, I believe Matt Ryan could get it done again. I mean, it's just one of those situations, and frankly enough, I mean, anything could happen. We could see something that we probably don't. I mean, you never know. There's just so many outcomes, and that's what makes obviously the NFL just so great. I mean, it's just America's best game. I mean, we'll have to wait and see what happens. And I mean, nothing's like a Harbaugh versus Harbaugh Super Bowl.
Yeah, I mean, I was pretty high on the Falcons earlier in the year, but what I had always said, I never said I thought they were going to win a championship. What I did say was I thought they were going to make a deep playoff run. So I think I can chalk that up to being correct on there. They made it to the NFC Championship. If they make it farther, that's great. This is about as far as I expected them to go. I'm not a Falcon fan by any stretch of the imagination, but it was definitely good, I think, to see Matt Ryan get the monkey off his back. He's too talented of a guy to have it hang over him that he can't win a playoff game. They brought it close at the end. Obviously, we're probably going to get to this next with the timeout that wasn't called and the practice kick and everything. But when it came down to it, the Falcons found a way to win, and it is definitely good to see Mike Smith and Matt Ryan get that monkey off their back.
Yeah, you're two things that are right in that situation there, Phil. First of all, Atlanta got their huge gorilla off their back with that victory over Seattle, who also, Seattle, I mean, they are, after the game, I'm impressed with Russell Wilson, and it's one of those scenarios, I mean, I'm going a little bit off topic here, but Russell Wilson, I mean, some fans, I mean, they just want to see the full product. They want to see the full material before they want to make a decision. And it's kind of, I believe this is a similar situation to, I mean, this is really off topic here, but I mean, seeing Russell Wilson play this year is similar to seeing a hot girl just walk in the bar and you see right away. It doesn't take you 2 or 3, minutes to figure out just how beautiful she is. Similar to Russell Wilson, I'm not matching his play with beauty, but in a way it is a thing of beauty if you really look at it. Russell Wilson has above the shoulders A+, he has A footwork, he has a rocket arm, he has so much intelligence, he has accuracy, and he's made guys like Golden Tate and Zach Miller look similar to a combination as, I mean, let's just be honest, like a Calvin Johnson to Tony Gonzalez combo. I mean, this guy is just flat out making guys better around his entire team. I put my hats off to Pete Carroll, but not enough emphasis is put on a guy that really, I believe, should be the Rookie of the Year, Russell Wilson. That being said, Atlanta, with one final situation, could knock that team out of the playoffs, and they call a timeout after completing a pass to Tony Gonzalez. And then on the field, who is this? This is Matt Bryant attempting field goals during the timeout. And then after the timeout is over, Seattle calls a timeout with their own Pete Carroll, and they attempt a 49-yard field goal. Despite the timeout, everyone's standing up watching the field goal, and it's no good. And then you go, oh, man, how could Seattle do such a thing? And I've never been a huge fan of icing the kicker, quote-unquote. But in that situation, I just can't be on Pete Carroll's side, despite the fact that Atlanta was really riding all the momentum there in that situation. But it's at home, 49-yard attempt. Some kickers say that it's just flat-out distracting to have a home crowd in that situation because it's just so quiet. But in that scenario, this finally leads us to our question here. Do you believe that the field goal kicker should not be allowed to attempt kicks before the real field goal is attempted? Kind of timeouts, warming up with the leg on the field, and that kind of thing. I mean, do you feel like that's just a burden to the game and really just ruins the chances of teams like Seattle? That really was a missed field goal off a timeout away from a conference championship appearance.
Well, the way I really compare this to, the only thing I can compare this to, for the NBA fans out there, people see this all the time in the NBA. Somebody gets fouled, they shoot a layup anyway. You're not allowed to dunk in downtime of a game. That actually results in a personal foul penalty. But, you see guys, in timeouts in the NBA, just shoot the ball up. Why not? Because it helps their psyche just seeing that ball go in. If they're on a cold streak and there's a timeout, you'll see these guys shoot a ball just to see it go in the net. And really, I don't have a problem with them kicking this, because if you're going to call a timeout and he wants to kick a ball, you're the one that calls a timeout. If you call a timeout, then you have a plan. You shouldn't worry what the other team is doing. Call a timeout to talk to your defense, talk to your offense, figure out what you need to do. Don't do it just to mess up a kicker's psyche. Because frankly, I don't think you should be allowed to ice a kicker. Not because I have this huge problem with it, but it's just a waste of time. And honestly, most of the time, it's not beneficial. You will see guys more often, they miss the first kick and make the second one. I can only think of one or two times where it actually worked in the favor of the team trying to ice the kicker. I think when the NFL does their rulings in the summer months, or in the winter months, should say, and they look for rules to change, I think they're going to look deep into this and definitely change something where you can't ice the kicker, you can't have two timeouts called on the same possession, or not same possession, on the same break in a series, maybe something along those lines. But I don't have a problem with them kicking it, but I do have a problem with icing the kicker. It takes too long, it very rarely doesn't work, and it just makes you look unsportsmanlike, in my opinion.
Yeah, I mean, outside of the very first time that really was made publicized, icing the kicker really doesn't work. It gives the field goal kicker a chance to warm up, in a sense, take that situation and kick the ball. I mean, when you really look at hindsight, icing the kicker is just, it's just an undue burden, in the NFL. And, you could say Seattle was really ruined out of a chance for a conference championship game, but in a sense, having the game come down to that with so many mistakes in the first half, it almost is like, let's move on to next year. And Russell Wilson also very encouraged about his team's performance in that situation. I obviously was, I'm a huge fan of Russell Wilson, but, I also have to agree on the side of Phil Nunziata. It's just one of those situations, an undue burden for the NFL, and just flat out waste time. And it wasted Seattle's chance for a potential conference championship appearance. We are wrapping up here on the NFL Goal Line here with Nick and Phil. We've been glad you guys can join us here on a live presentation of the national sports here live on Spreaker.com. We've had a terrific show. Robert Dieters stopping by earlier on in the broadcast. We had divisional recaps, conference championship predictions, and have also really helped bring you the entire year, everything around the National Football League as far as headlines and scores, and flat out just bringing you everything there is to know about the National Football League. And we also have a tradition here. We've done it since midway through the NFL Goal Line with Game Balls, with me and Phil Nunziata bringing out their top player of the weekend. Now, both of us, before the show, it's easy to go with a impressive and flat-out draw-dropping performance of Colin Kaepernick, but we like to dig a little bit deeper, behind the scenes, to a guy that really outperformed expectations and wasn't really expected to play as well as he did. And for my game ball, I go no farther than a guy I've been perhaps a little bit overpraising the entire broadcast. Russell Wilson, I'm extremely impressed by a fourth-round pick. The entire game against the Atlanta Falcons doesn't have a single ball batted at the line of scrimmage. This is a 5'11" quarterback who threw for 360 yards in this matchup. 385, actually. I understated Russell Wilson. 24 for 36, 385 yards, 2 touchdowns, in a game where Seattle was on the road in the Georgia Dome, the top team in the NFC, loud crowd against a defense that really can rush the passer. Just doesn't have the top pass defense secondary-wise as as most people see. and that rushing game was not going, 2.9 yards per carry, I give my game ball to Russell Wilson. Sure, it's a loss, but Seattle will be set for years upon years with this franchise quarterback. And from the very first snap of the preseason, Pete Carroll saw his quarterback and Russell Wilson a talent in the National Football League. Phil Nunziata, now here's your game ball.
Well, I agree with you. It's very easy to say Colin Kaepernick because he had just an unbelievable game. But as you said, we'd like to dig a little deeper here on the goal line, and I don't think anyone could see this performance coming this week. I'm going to go with Trendon Holiday from the Denver Broncos, the only player ever to have a kick return and punt return touchdown in the same game. He had a 90-yard punt return, and I'm trying to look at the stats here, and a 104-yard kickoff return. That is just amazing. Here's a guy, he took a few back in the regular season, really steps up. Trendon Holiday, obviously both of our guys in losing efforts, but as far as individual performance, a guy that just steps up beyond his normal call of duty. You can't ask anything more from a guy like that. Just making a play when it counts. You don't have to be star wide receiver running back to make plays. I like guys that'll play on special teams and actually work hard. A lot of guys, once they're there, they kind of settle in and you can see the difference. But when you take your job seriously and you have success with it, especially to that magnitude, you're going to get a shout out on this show just about every time.
And Trendon Holiday, talking about respect, during the entire second half, outside of a kickoff or two, every single kickoff or punt was either out of bounds or through the back of the end zone. Speaking of respect,
I wouldn't kick to him either.
Yeah, or a squib kick. I mean, flat out respect for this team. And we also, NFL goal line, we like to shout out the losers of these divisional round of the playoffs. Obviously, that doesn't happen every week, but. Wrapping up here in the NFL goal line and January football for almost every team. Now, obviously, the playoffs are in full swing here, but we're wrapping up here, but a quick little 30 seconds. I don't know if you've looked too much into the draft upcoming this April, Phil, but apparently, and last year we just saw perhaps the biggest quarterback class, most impressive in the entire NFL. Apparently, there's a report saying, and I don't think this is very far-fetched, there won't be a single quarterback drafted in the first round. Is that concerning for teams like Kansas City, Jacksonville, maybe Minnesota that need quarterbacks in order to win?
That wouldn't surprise me because there's no one on this everyone thought it'd be Matt Barkley, but obviously he has not played up to his expectations on top of being injured. It would not surprise me if there's no quarterback taken in the first round this year. But honestly, I usually don't start doing my draft research until after the season's over, which brings me to a great idea. Everyone out there listening, go ahead and hop on Facebook. Let us know after the Super Bowl. We're not going to have much football to talk about. Let us know if you would like to see an NFL draft podcast edition of the NFL Goal Line. We'll do our research. We'll let you know who we think should go where. Let us know what you think on Facebook if you want to see that happen.
Obviously, here on the NFL Goal Line, we hope to bring you nothing but football the entire year, 12 months and 365 days a year. We hope to have you guys back for next weekend. Now, we will look forward to the NFL Draft edition and obviously off-season edition of NFL Goal Line when it comes. But for right now, Conference Championship games. It is Baltimore and New England to represent the winner of the AFC, in Super Bowl 47, and the NFC with the Atlanta Falcons and San Francisco 49ers. And the winner will be represented in the Super Bowl, and Beyonce's halftime show will be representing one lucky American that posts up their video apparently on CBS. So I'm interested in that, and the winner will be live on a halftime show seen by Williams. I mean, to me, that's intriguing. Obviously, not a way to end NFL Goal Line here, but thank you guys for joining us here. Nick Rice and Phil Nunziata signing off on the NFL Goal Line with affiliation of National Sports here on Spreaker.com. Thank you guys for listening, and we are signing off here on the NFL Goal Line. Have a great Tuesday, and we'll see you next week.